Guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 1 on DraftKings is fast approaching, so we're going to talk about every single wide receiver that I can possibly think of. We've already done this video for the quarterbacks. We've focused on the running backs in another video. You guys have seemed to like those. We're going to hit the wide receivers today to try and make you as prepared as possible to make your decisions when week 1 gets here. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching all those other videos as well. I'm glad that you've come back to the channel. Glad to see you again. And let's go.
He's a legend.
There's a lot of different ways that we could break this down. I could go game by game. I could start with value, but like the way that we've done it and the way that I think that you guys like it, we kind of look at it with the players that are kind of on top of the projections, or what I feel will be the highest projected players, because value is going to open up. There's always going to be injury. There's always going to be players that step into larger roles. There's a couple of values that we're going to talk about by the end of this video as we get down to the lower priced players, but let's focus on the guys up top, and we'll get to players that I think might be a little more cash game viable, and some other players that not everybody. I'm not the type of guy who's going to tell you everybody's a GPP play. They absolutely are not. It's more about how you play GPPs. If you've watched this channel for a long time, I don't care who you play in a GPP. I care more about how you play those players in a GPP. So especially at wide receiver, because it's not just about, well, you know, if nobody's going to play Davante Adams because he's really expensive, then I should play Davante Adams. As a standalone, probably not. But like, if you're going to play Davante Adams, tying him to somebody, whether it's in a secondary stack or a primary stack, if you're using the quarterback, tying him to somebody else from this game on the other side, whether it's Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, would be kind of the sharp way to go about things. So focusing on, let's start with him since we're here, the most expensive wide receiver on the slate. We're at 30,000 feet, cruising altitude. We're not coming in for a landing yet, so this is not like a thing that we know for sure. There is one thing we know for sure. Darren Waller has not been practicing like at all this preseason. So he's either going to be extremely well rested and spry when week 1 gets here, or he's injured and isn't going to play. Now, Davante Adams is going to eat no matter what happens, right? Like, that's just the way that things are going to go. He's going to get fed. He's going to lead the Raiders in terms of target market share. But whenever there's less target competition for him to get, like the island of Foster Moreau is not going to command 15 to 25% of Derek Carr's targets any day of the week. So if you're telling me that Davante Adams has a easier path to 30 plus targets in a game that is one of the highest projected scoring outcomes on the slate against Los Angeles Chargers, then Davante Adams becomes a lot more palatable to me from a tournament perspective. I don't foresee him being a cash game play at his current price of 8,100, considering the other running backs who have a higher, same ceiling and a higher floor than does Davante Adams on any given week. But I love Davante Adams as a spend up to be contrarian play, and I like it even more if Darren Waller is not ready to go in week 1. Justin Jefferson, I mean, he's great. There's no arguments you're going to get from me, right? Justin Jefferson last year in a run-first offense still caught 108 balls for 1,616 yards, double-digit touchdowns. He's always open. Every time that they show a replay where they're focused the camera on him and the DB, there is never a defensive back once he's into a route, like seemingly within 5 yards of him. He's like the king of separation. He always finds ways to get open. Tremendous route runner, great inside the red zone and the end zone, and big splash ability as well, as you see kind of all these 30 plus 40 plus yard plays that he logged in every game. So like, he can get it for you in chunks, and he's getting you all these games with double digit targets as well. Priced up a lot. It's not impossible to get him in, but it is a little bit more difficult. Outside of Kirk Cousins stacks, utilizing him as a part of a secondary stack, I think is going to be extremely fashionable in week 1 in tournaments. You'll understand why when we get to the end of the video. That's what we call in the industry a tease, because there is a big time value play at wide receiver that is playing opposite Minnesota. Debo Samuel, I'm not high on Debo Samuel in redraft. I think he's going a little bit too high. Look, if you started watching the shorts on the channel recently, if you watched the do not do this video that we did, 5 tips to make you a better player on DraftKings for the 2022 season, targeting targets is a massive way to make yourself better. Now, Debo Samuel at the beginning of the season last year was doing just that. He was getting a ton of looks in the passing game. He was the alpha. He was eating. Brandon Ayuk was not eating. He was left on the porch. He was in the doghouse, all of those things. And rushing attempts were low. By the end of the season, however, it was a completely different story. They basically turned Debo Samuel into Chase Edmonds. Now, he scored a lot more touchdowns than Chase Edmonds. I'm talking about on workload. 10 carries, 7 carries, 8 carries. A lot of those turning into touchdowns from like 20 plus yards away. That's not sustainable year over year, guys. It's just not. So he's gonna come back in terms of those long rushing attempts that turn into touchdowns. Hopefully we see a return to Debo Samuel getting more targets, but I'm not really sure that's going to happen in an offense that's led by Trey Lance. San Francisco is already going to be a team that is going to go places because of what they can do defensively. And anytime they play from a lead, they bleed the clock and run the ball a ton. This year, I think that they're going to run the ball a whole lot more and paying up to $7,400 to get a guy who's a pass catching running back, a long down and distance running back, at least based on usage, is not my idea of a good time. I can get that for $5,000 at the running back position. I can get wide receivers between 4K and 6K who reasonably are going to get 7, 8, 9 targets. And we're not seeing that late in the season from Debo Samuel. And now a team that I don't expect to throw the ball more than 25 times in any game, 49ers, and target competition from Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. I think that Debo Samuel works his way down to like the low 6,000. So I'm not going to pay the massive premium in week 1 to go get him. He can certainly pay off for you. It's just a low scoring game, projects as a low scoring game. They project to play from ahead. And now he is not just fighting one other player for rushing competition. He's now fighting 2 because Trey Lance plus Eli Mitchell. And then Debo Samuel might get like 5, 6 carries a game. Go check out everything that they have over at rotowire.com. They have provided us a very limited time offer for a all access pass to everybody that is a part of the Smizz Gang community. Right down in the pinned comment, you can use smizzle.tv/rotowire and get a 2-day all access pass to everything that they have over at RotoWire. If your draft is coming up, perfect. Go check out their 2022 fantasy football draft kit. They have tons of value information, ADP reports, bunch of sleepers, auction values. You can enter your own league stats to print out the exact cheat sheet that you need for your draft. So if your draft is coming up against your friends and family, definitely go check out the RotoWire promo that we have running right now. It's going to expire soon, right after week 1 kickoff. So get in there and support the people that support us here on the channel. Jamar Chase is everybody's favorite, $7,100. You get a big discount going from the big dogs to him. So he should not be $700 less. He shouldn't be $700 less at all than Justin Jefferson. He's right there and projects to take a massive step forward in terms of his targets. And we're going to get to this when I talk about Brady. But Brandon Thorne hit on something earlier. A lot of people have been concerned about the offensive line in Tampa Bay. Tom Brady has like led the league in terms of deep targets and efficiency on deep targets the last 2 seasons since he's been in Tampa Bay. He's had a tremendous offensive line, great offensive line play. That offensive line has diminished a little bit. Jamar Chase, Cincinnati Bengals, and Joe Burrow they had a trash bags offensive line. No offense to any of the fine gentlemen who played on that offensive line last year, but it was really, really bad. It was a terrible offensive line from a reality IRL perspective, right? They could not protect Joe Burrow. He did not have time to sit there. And he still connected on a ton of passes to Jamar Chase, including the playoffs. 163 targets. He caught 106 of those. Average yards per catch of 17.2 yards. 46-yard long, 57. He was constantly open down the field. 72-yard long, 82, 53, 70. Now, one would say that that type of production is not sustainable. I think that to some degree it's a skill, and some guys have it. Randy Moss had it. Deshaun Jackson had it. Tyreek Hill clearly has it. Jamar Chase has big-time ability to get deep down the field, great at contested catches. He gets enough separation to make things work for him. He's not the best separator, but like he's got a really big body that allows him to catch balls and to box players out in the short to intermediate ranges. But his speed, his talent, his ability, his timing allows him to get downfield. Now, if you're telling me that Joe Burrow is going to have more time in the pocket to assess those deep throws and throw from a really set base and a strong base, deep ball efficiency certainly has the ability to be sticky considering the improved offensive line play for Cincinnati. this year. So I think Jamar Chase is going to be extremely popular in week 1. I think that Keenan Allen is going to be very popular. The later games in this slate, to highlight them, there's 4. Chargers, Las Vegas, Green Bay, Minnesota, and Kansas City, Arizona are going to be 3 of the highest trafficked games on the slate. Not because they're kicking off later, but because they're 3 of the highest totaled games on the weekend. So like looking at the early games, really low totals, low to average, right? 40 to like 45 is low to average. You have 41, 45 for the Ravens and the Jets, 49. This is the only really high totaled game on the early slate. Philadelphia against Detroit, and close and competitive shootout. This is the sneaky shootout on the slate, by the way. Everything else is really low scoring, really slow and slogging. Even that Bengals game only is at 45. They're favored by 6.5. So you do the math and it gives them a team total of expected like 25.5, 26 points. Everything is low totaled until we get to the later kickoffs, 51, 48, 53. 3 of the 4 highest totaled games on the slate are happening at the later kickoff time. So people are going to pile up on those games, and for good reason. So Keenan Allen priced at 7,000, double-digit target expectation pretty much all the time. A game that could very easily shoot out in this situation. The Raiders going to have to throw the ball to be effective. They project to play from behind in this one. His partner in crime, Mike Williams, difficult to guard this offense with an emerging Justin Herbert going into his 3rd year. I think that he is the odds-on favorite in the DraftKings Sportsbook. He is the favorite to lead the league in passing touchdowns this year. And 6,600, I think Mike Williams might be one of the highest played players in this price range. Tyreek Hill always has big game ability. To warn you about something here, and I'm not warning you about the Miami Dolphins. I'm not warning you about Tyreek Hill. I'm not warning you about Tua Tagovailoa. I'm warning you about yourself. Okay, so have a seat. Like, this is the gif where like Captain America walks in and spins the chair around and sits down. Have a seat. For all of you who say, I don't believe that Tua is the thing, I don't think that Tyreek Hill is going to have a good season in the Miami Dolphins offense, I'm going to wait and see. Here's the tip. By the time you've waited and seen, the opportunity to cash in is gone. You have to take leaps of faith when it comes to daily fantasy, even if the consensus says that it's not going to be the thing that happens. If Tyreek Hill is under 10% played in week 1 in tournaments, that is going to be a big mistake that I'm going to try to overweight on because of the what if and the possibilities that it could pay off. When you take a look at the NFL season as a whole, weeks 1 through the Super Bowl, week 21, the best time to be contrarian, especially in the 18-week regular season, the best time for you to be contrarian and trust your instincts and do what the field is not prepared to do is weeks 1 through 4. Looking back a few years, the Dallas Cowboys, I've told this story before. If you've heard it before, just listen to it again. The Dallas Cowboys were supposed to be a really, really, really terrible defense, like absolutely the worst defense in the league. This is when DeMarco Murray was their running back. Remember the year that DeMarco Murray had like 427 something touches on the season, and then he was never the same after that? Nobody wanted to play DeMarco Murray in September because Cowboys were supposed to be playing from behind a ton, and their defense was supposed to be the worst in the league. And from a metric standpoint and a per play standpoint, it was. But their coaches kind of figured this out, and they said, you know what? We can't guard anybody. So what if we just don't let them ever have the ball, and we just run it a ton, and we use short passes, and we incorporate DeMarco Murray into the passing game, and we keep the ball for 40 minutes per game and let the opponents have it for 20 because on a per play basis, our defense is trash. It was the worst defense in the league from a metrics point of view, but nobody ever got to get the ball. So they had way less plays. And DeMarco Murray was somebody who nobody thought of playing in September. And he was winning people tournaments for 3 straight weeks until the field came around. They waited and saw, and now they're like, well, I should play DeMarco Murray. Well, now everybody's playing DeMarco Murray. The time to capitalize is gone. The time to capitalize on people's mistrust of Tua Tagovailoa and his supposed inability to throw the ball deep is September. If you believe and you want to get in on it and you think, look, the best possible outcome is that he is just fine and it's about the talent around him in the scheme, then Tyreek Hill makes a fantastic tournament play at 6,800 and is not going to be somebody who is going to cost you your entire bankroll for the week for your salary cap, and gives you a chance to possibly overweight if he is a sub 10% player. I love him as a tournament player for week 1, just for those couple of reasons. Terry McLaurin's going to see some improved quarterback play this year. Look, there's all the Carson Wentz jokes that you want. No receiver in the league basically saw less catchable balls than Terry McLaurin did the last two. He's had horrible quarterback play. It's just been god awful. And Wentz, he's not great, right? Like, I'm not saying that like Wentz is an MVP caliber player anymore, but like he's an upgrade from Heineke and Allen and whatever the hell else they were trotting out under center the last two seasons. So Terry McLaurin does take a bit of an arrow up here from a catchable ball standpoint in this situation. So 6,500 for week one, that's more for the entire year. Even with that terrible quarterback play, 77 catches, over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. I think all of these numbers improved this year is basically what I'm saying. And Jacksonville has not been a great defense, so he is more of a sneaky tournament play for me. AJ Brown, I think they got his price right. Now, AJ Brown being drafted around the 2-3 turn in drafts, so like his price could easily be in that 7,000 range, but it's not. It's 6,400. I don't think that this Eagles team is going to be a really high volume pass game offense, but I think it's going to be an improved pass game offense from an efficiency standpoint, as well as they can run the ball. And as much of a threat as Jalen Hurts himself is to run the football, it's going to open things up on the outside. And when you replace what they had at wide receiver with AJ Brown and now a second-year Devontae Smith, efficiency, not volume, is what feeds quarterback scoring. So looking back at like Lamar Jackson's MVP year when he threw the ball like 20 to 25 times a game, his wide receivers, or like his pass catchers, let's say, because like it was Mark Andrews and it was Marquis Brown, not much deeper than that, had the ability to have big games because on like 4 or 5 catches, they could get deep. They could score touchdowns in multiple ones. I think that AJ Brown fits into that category. Not a cash game play, but like him in tournaments. Again, if you're going to play him in tournaments, definitely you have to correlate him with somebody on the other side. Jalen Waddle, already talked about Tua. Same rules apply with Tyreek Hill that apply to Jalen Waddle. Going to see a big downtick in terms of his target market share because of the big time target competition, but the coach has offensive chops, let's say. Like, there's going to be ways that they're going to get the ball into multiple playmakers' hands in places on the field where they can win, and Jalen Waddle is a player that can win at multiple levels. Brandon Cooks goes overlooked at all times. Probably the number one bring back play in week one. For those of you who are watching this video and don't know what a bring back play is, it means that you're focusing on getting somebody from Indianapolis because you think that they're going to score 28 to 35 real life points. They're going to score 4 or 5 touchdowns. So I think everybody's going to be on Jonathan Taylor. I think some people are going to be on Pittman, whatever it is. And then having somebody from that team in a secondary stack, Brandon Cooks is the number one bring back in that situation. If you're a member of the Mills Mafia and you believe that the quarterback's going to take a step forward in year 2, then Brandon Cooks in full PPR with a bonus is a value waiting to happen. He's always priced in this range, seemingly, like from 5,500 to 6,500. That's just kind of where he lives. And you look at the 20 plus points that he brings to you. I love him as a bring back play. He's not a standalone play for me, and he's not somebody that I'm going to really target outside of secondary stacks because that's the way it's going to go. Or if you're playing Matt Ryan contrarian stacks in week 1. Marquis Brown steps into a really high volume role in the absence of Nuke Hopkins for the first 6 weeks. He's like, this is where we get into a bunch of guys where everybody that I hit, I'm going to say he seems really cheap, right? He just does. I think that this volume is going to sustain for a couple of reasons. Baltimore, not as high a volume pass game attack as projects to be the Arizona Cardinals. Marquis Brown showed an ability to win at the short and intermediate range late last season, where we had not seen that from him before in previous years. And we know that the horizontal rate offense does accentuate that a lot. So getting the ball in his hands in space, as well as hopefully allowing Kyler to take more shots downfield, is really going to help his possibilities here. Again, this is a game, Kansas City versus Arizona, that is going to be one of the highest scoring games on the entire slate. It's just the way that it projects out to be. So everybody's going to want shares of it. And looking at the other side, if we isolate by just that game, Kansas City and Arizona, Brown is 6,200. Juju Smith-Schuster, yeah, he's limping around practice right now. It is what it is, on a knee thing, right? That he should be ready for week 1. He's 5,400. Travis Kelsey is like 6K, but like you can get a whole lot in this range. Like I said, from like 4,000 to 6,000, there's so many values at wide receiver on this slate, which is making tournaments very interesting to me because I don't think there should be. There always will be in week one because people have too much time with projections and everybody's going to hammer in the highest points per dollar plays once projections get finalized. When week one actually gets here, you know, it's like from September the 4th till kickoff on September the 11th. People are going to really start to consolidate around this is the best value play on the slate from a points per dollar perspective, and this is the guy you have to play. The reality is, however, that every single player that projects to have a lot of volume in this range has a very similar ceiling. They can all score you 25 plus DraftKings points to 40 DraftKings points. It depends on who actually wanders into the end zone. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Y'all are watching Hard Knocks. Dude catches 202 balls a day. What if that would be some sort of record in the NFL if he could do that. But like this usage actually might sustain, right? He might be an 8+ target guy week in, week out. The amount of targets that he saw down the stretch. I know DeAndre Swift was not in. I know Hawkinson was injured at that time. He was basically the only show in town, but he showed that he could carry that sort of workload along with him. So like 8+ targets per game, bringing him down 2 or 3 from his late season production is more than enough to satisfy at 6,100. And again, considering the high total in this game, makes for a great secondary stack type player or a primary stack if you wanted to go with a crazy Goff, Swift, St. Brown sort of stack, the Hard Knock stack, let's call it. If you wanted to go with that. Same thing that I talked about with Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is in play as well to tie along with Burrow, or if you're playing Najee Harris, or if Harris is just popping for you, or Deontay Johnson, who projects to be the #1 wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me say that again. Deontay Johnson projects to be the #1 targeted and #1 wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. There has been a lot of camp buzz around Pickens, the rookie, for good reason. He looks like he's going to be a very good pro. He was underrated at the draft because of the injury he sustained in college. Also, Chase Claypool is a favorite for many people in terms of a value play at ADP. But do you want to know what we've learned through the preseason is that no matter if they're in a 3 wide receiver set or a 2 wide receiver set, the only wide receiver of those 3 who is on the field on every single snap with the starting quarterback is Deontay Johnson. He's the guy. He is on the field all the time. One of the best separators in the league. He is an extremely talented wide receiver, a target monster, and in PPR with bonuses on DraftKings is a gold mine every single week. Last season, late in the year, 7,600, 7,000, 7,500, 7,500, 7,100, 6,800, and producing at those price ranges. It's very hard for him to post duds at the 6,000 price point. I think that he's in consideration for cash game lineups and certainly as a part of a secondary stack for Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow lineups as your primary quarterback or in secondary stacks with any one of the players on Cincinnati. Anytime they went 3 wide receiver, Johnson was on the field and so were Pickens and Claypool. Anytime they went 2 wide, Johnson was the constant and Pickens and Claypool kind of split time with the ones. So Deontay Johnson, clearly the #1 option there. Amari Cooper, not interested. I don't, look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Amari Cooper is the unquestioned alpha in this Cleveland Browns offense, and he's a very good player. Very good football player, great route runner, big time ability, speed, can get down the field, wins at short and everything. This has nothing to do with Amari Cooper's skill set. This has everything to do with the fact that I don't think that the Cleveland Browns are going to be a team that's going to fling the pig all over the place. They are going to be a running first and defense team. They have 74 running backs on the roster that they want to get all of them 10+ touches. And that's not going to leave a lot in terms of targets. He may get a high market share of the targets, but like when the targets are going to be like 20 to 25 a game and they're not coming from Deshaun Watson for 11 weeks, I'm out. DJ Moore, we're going to see a lot of targets. I think that he's going to get a lot of, he's going to see improved quarterback play going from Sam Darnold to Baker Mayfield. Think what you will about him, but DJ Moore has been a player the last few years who has totaled up a lot of catches, a lot of targets, and a lot of yards, and it's never materialized in terms of touchdowns because passing scoring for fantasy football is based on quarterback efficiency, not passing attempts. He's not had efficient play at quarterback the last 2 seasons, last 3 seasons, and therefore he has not resulted in touchdowns. The volume's going to sustain. He is a big-time talent at wide receiver, and with improved quarterback play, I think we see very possibly the first season where he gets 8 to 12 touchdowns in the last couple. Coming down a little bit, I'm trying to talk about as many of these players as possible. Michael Thomas has sustained a hamstring injury now after the 2 years with the ankle injury. He's sidelined through Wednesday. Monitor this as it goes along. If he's there, he has looked like the #1 guy from all the beat reports. But if he's not playing, that's going to open up a couple of things. I'm gonna speed up here because this video is getting a little bit longer. I hope that you're enjoying the video. If you're still watching at this point, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell. I do come out with an awful lot of content this season. If Thomas at 57 is in play, he's fine. If he's out, I probably prefer Olave, the rookie, to Jarvis Landry in week 1 against Atlanta. Now, Jarvis Landry has a good skill set. He's a very good NFL caliber wide receiver, but there's something telling me that Olave's skill set speaks more to Jameis Winston's spirit animal. The player that Winston is and wants to be translates more to a Chris Olave and his ability to get deep when Jameis just says, chuck it, as opposed to Jarvis Landry, whose ability to get open in the short and intermediate ranges fits more, right? So, like, I think I would prefer Olave in the case that Thomas is out. Going to the Green Bay wide receivers, since I see Allen Lazard in this range. Renfrow also, before I get there. If Waller is out, then Renfrow becomes a greatly accelerated value play at 5,800. Again, less targets to compete for, so a higher market share of targets for him in week 1. I'm not really in on Mooney. We're getting down into kind of the value range and the RB or wide receiver 2s once we get down into here, and there's so many wide receivers. So I'm going to focus on a couple of teams first. I mentioned how there was a tease when it came to Minnesota and stacking with Justin Jefferson for week 1. Everybody knows about Allen Lazard. His ADP skyrocketed to like the 70s. He's 5,600. Fine. Like, I like it. I don't love it. I don't know if he can handle 150 targets in a year. I don't think that he's that sort of guy. So I think that we're not going to see, what did I say the other day, that Devontae Adams vacated like 706 targets over the course of an NFL season, one off season, and those have to be soaked up somewhere. Don't fact check that number, but like, I think it's right. So Allen Lazard probably going to get like 120 to 145 targets, which is fine. I don't think you can saddle him with like 160 or 160 plus, which means that more targets have to go somewhere else. Sammy Watkins, I'm not buying it. I'm just not. We haven't seen him really produce anything for the last couple of seasons. Can't stay on the field, can't stay healthy, can't produce when he's out there. Maybe you get 1 week a year. Christian Watson's been injured all through camp. They drafted him in the 2nd round. He profiles to be somebody who's going to be good down the line. He's 5,100. Watkins is 4,700. But the star of camp has been Romeo Doubs. It's pronounced Dobbs. I hate it. I lost so much joke equity with his name not being like Dubs and being Dobbs. So it is what it is. But he's 3,000. He's 3,000. If he is the starting, he's getting lunch every single day with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is talking him up in interviews. 2 weeks ago, he said that every single day, Dobbs has been making the wow play in camp. They're basically lined up to play him as the starting wide receiver right now. And if he gets those 75, 80% of the snaps on the outside opposite of Allen Lazard, and it's not Watkins. Look, I know that Aaron Rodgers has a history of not throwing the ball to rookie wide receivers, but none of those, and they're really talented ones, Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams, but those wide receivers were like 4th or 5th on the depth chart. If you're on the field in an Aaron Rodgers offense, 80% of the snaps or more, you're gonna see targets. And at 3,000, that's all I care about. 5-6 targets is enough on DraftKings at 3K. If you're telling me you could get 6 to 9 targets from Aaron Rodgers in one of the highest totaled games on the day, absolute smash play. Monitor the Dobbs situation as the next couple of weeks go along. At the very least, if he is starting for Green Bay, he is going to be in everybody's cash game lineup, and he's going to carry a really high percentage in tournaments, which means that we're probably going to have to find a couple of more value plays to look at. And with Sterling Shepard still out, Kenny Golladay looking like a statue through preseason, Kadarius Toney is only 4,100. Now he's got, he's always dinged up, right? He's dealing with some sort of a hamstring injury right now. We were talking about this on stream. He doesn't have the explosiveness, but it's not something that's preventing him from walking. There's no noticeable limp, but he can't get out of cuts and out of breaks right now. Hopefully that kind of helps itself out in the 2.5 weeks that we have before kickoff, because at 4,100, he's a tremendous value. Even with Tony in, Wan'Dale Robinson's 3K currently profiles as their starting slot guy when they go 3 wide. But in the case that Kadarius Toney can't make week 1 with his hamstring injury and Wan'Dale is pressed into starting on the outside opposite of Kenny Galladay, it is a slower paced game, but like really all we need is 5-6 targets at 3K. There's so many of them, right? Like you also have they were talking up Colin Johnson was doing well as monitoring. He was on Jacksonville last year. Bigger target. Wan'Dale's like 5'5", Colin Johnson's like 6'1". If you wanted to get deep undercover, these Giants 3K guys are kind of the guys that I'm looking at. Taking a look at a couple other value plays. I had mentioned Indy before. They're playing against Houston. Really bad defense. Pittman is the #1 guy. I saw we were talking about this on stream also before I started the recording. Michael Pittman Jr. Apparently was overheard that if they keep using Michael Pittman Jr. the way that they're using him in training camp, he could catch 140 balls this year. That's not real. At least not based on his catch percentage. Unless something drastically changes in his skill set, he would need like 215 targets to satisfy 140 catches. So I don't know if I see that happening this season, but a lot of people are going to flock to him in week 1. He's got an ADP that's climbing up into the 2nd round. He's fine. There's nothing against Michael Pittman Jr. He's fine for week 1 on DraftKings at his current price. But somebody has to start on the other side, right? And if everybody's going to flock towards Jonathan Taylor and their #1 pivot off of Taylor is to go to Pittman Jr., Paris Campbell is currently starting on the other side and is only 3,300. Matt Ryan's going to throw the ball 30 times. They're expected to score 4+ touchdowns. I think their team total right now is 28.5. Could be wrong. Double check it. Do what you want to do. Last time I checked it, that's where it said it was. If they score 4 touchdowns, Paris Campbell walks into one of them and gets 6-7 targets, right? I'm not looking for 10-12 targets. That would be like gravy. But if you can get 5, 6, 7 targets out of a 3K to 3,300 player on DraftKings with a possibility of touchdown upside, how many times have you played or watched a Colts game where you had Jonathan Taylor and saw like Ashton Doolin get a touchdown? It always seems to happen, right? So Paris Campbell, another solid play at the low end. Love him. Rashad Bateman, another player going up against the Jets that I had not talked about yet. I'm not going to probably double stack this Baltimore game very often, but like in the cases that I do, there's only 2 places you go. One of them is Mark Andrews. The other one is Rashad Bateman at 5,300. More values are going to pop up as we get closer to week 1. Players are going to go down with injury. Players are not going to be ready for week 1, and we're going to have to pivot. I will be back week 1 with the week 1 first look and everything to help get you prepared. So thank you guys for watching this video. Look for another one right there.
He's a legend.